Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
It was the epic breakup heard round the world. You probably remember where you were when you first heard about it. And it all played out very publicly on social media. On one side, the U.S. president. On the other, the world's richest man. Now, Donald Trump has said that his relationship with Elon Musk is over. But is that true? And is this breakup in any way connected to calling in the National Guard to help deal with protests in California, even though the governor didn't ask for it? Could the breakup affect the U.S. midterm elections next year? I'm Kris McCusker, and in this episode of The Big Story, I went looking for a different take on this dispute, not a political one, not a financial one, but rather a philosophical one. Dr. Antoine Panaïoti is Associate Professor of Philosophy at Toronto Metropolitan University. Thanks for doing this.
Of course.
The first thing I want you to do is sort of let listeners in on your background. Walk me through your background, your education, if you could.
Yeah, so I was trained in philosophy, history of philosophy, but also history of religion, first at McGill and then McGill University in Montreal, and then at Cambridge University for my MPhil and my PhD. So history of philosophy is a broad field, but my interests are very much, I would say, related to the question of the crisis of values, or crisis of meaning, perhaps, is the better term. Well, and they go hand in hand, right? Crisis of meaning and great upheaval related to how we value, ourselves, our existence, give meaning to our existence, to evaluate one another in a society, how we organize our societies, and so on. So I'm very much interested in particularly conjunctures or situations where there's a real transformation and older regimes of meaning and value are somehow destabilized, and this creates a vacuum where like new regimes of value and meaning arise. I'm very interested in particular thinkers that speak to those issues, and particularly I'm interested in the Indian Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna. And I'm also interested in Friedrich Nietzsche, 19th century German philosopher, end of 19th century, where the European continent, and you could say the broader Western world, is being sort of faced with this new reality of faith becoming essentially a private affair, and Christianity, which is the dominant religion, of course, of the West, no longer playing the kind of role in providing a framework of meaning and value for society, for various factions within society, the military, the scientific establishment, the governing classes, etc. In terms of where my perspectives might be relevant, or faced with the reality that we're now witnessing in the U.S., in particular, with the rise of this new Trumpism. 2016 to 20 was just one iteration of this. Well, 17 to 21 technically. But this second mandate, we're really witnessing something different. And one of the things that we're witnessing that is particularly striking is the kind of alliance, this new alliance between the tech billionaire class and MAGA, because we can't really speak of republicanism anymore. I think the Republican Party in the U.S. has become a sort of shell for a very different kind of political force, which is MAGA politics, Make America Great Again politics. And I think, in a way, this particular development at the level of politics and society and culture is Yes, it's another iteration of trying to negotiate a crisis of meaning and purpose and value. I think, looking at that situation through this historical / philosophical lens can be relevant. This is why I'm happy to be speaking with you today.
With this as a backdrop, what are your thoughts on the very public breakup, I'm going to call it, between the US president and the Tesla CEO Elon Musk last week?
I think what we're witnessing with this particular breakup is a moment of instability or a moment of strong tension in what, pretended to be for a while a united front between an extremely charismatic leader. So I think Trump's style of leadership and form of authority is charismatic in Max Weber's sense of he's presenting himself as sort of the sole person capable of saving the soul of the nation, so to speak. And so and charismatic leadership is always very erratic and unstable. And there was an alliance for a time between this great charismatic leader who is Trump with the slightly more technocratic kind of geek crazy genius type that is represented by Elon Musk, where Elon Musk's sort of appeal in the general project of bringing Trump back to power is to say, look, Trump has got the gut feelings. Trump is to be trusted, so to speak, in terms of his basic instincts. And look, he's able to surround himself with smart, capable, efficiency-minded people who have experience in, running large, very successful businesses. And so Elon Musk, for all his own sort of erratic aspects, is nevertheless, I think, a symbol of late capitalist, high efficiency technocracy. And I think that this breakup is essentially a kind of sort of a disclosing of what was fundamentally always an extremely unstable and precarious marriage of convenience, and it shows effectively that the charismatic leadership is fundamentally unstable and destabilizing, and there can be no real follow through with respect to anything, be it tariffs or cutting down government expenses by implementing Doge and putting Elon Musk in responsibility for this, or any kind of relationship, really. So that's, I guess, the story more seen from the sort of side of MAGA and Trump. From the standpoint of Elon Musk and the tech billionaires that he is, you could say, at the forefront of this class, so to speak. I think there was a real attempt on behalf of the tech billionaire world and class to create a kind of alliance with Donald Trump, thinking that his baser instincts, irrational populist instincts, etc., could somehow be controlled, tracked, channeled by being surrounded by sort of smart geeks that he trusts, and that he effectively uses, but also believes in as sort of great men, so to speak, and geniuses and so on. And this is a failure. I mean, the one big beautiful act is not the kind of thing that someone like Elon Musk or his brothers in arms, I say brothers because they're mainly men, want to see. And in general, immigration policy, such as is carried out by Trump so far, is not the kind of thing that the tech class wants to see either. And so I think there's a kind of joint or common failure. But I mean, both sides, so to speak, are disappointed in their inability to fully instrumentalize the other. But that's, of course, just part of the story. I'm deliberately trying to keep my answers short. I'm very bad at giving short answers, I have to say.
No, that's okay. There's a lot to unpack, let's face it. And I think the other sort of part to this, when I really boil it down and look at, bare bones, it's like, here are two people that are used to getting what they want, and, very big alpha personalities. I think most people believe that it was kind of a matter of time before it disintegrated.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both each in their own ways. They're both bullies. We see Trump's leadership style in terms of international relations, with the tariffs, for example, and so on. This is a sort of a bully kind of behavior. If you look at Elon Musk's way of handling, efforts to unionize amongst the Tesla workers and so on, you can see it's also very much, you know, a bully mentality and approach and attitude. And no, I mean, ultimately, this is true of, schoolyard politics, so to speak, as it is of the White House now. You put two bullies in the same room, and ultimately, the question is, one will have to come out on top, and one will have to be submissive, and the other will be, domineering. But if neither wants to submit, then and both think that they're going to get to be the domineering ones, then obviously, it's just a matter of time before they each go their own ways. All the more so if they don't truly stand for the same set of views and values and ideas, which I think is true of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So yeah, but there's definitely, I mean, you can analyze it in terms of just simply the psychology of the bully. As respect to the question of being alpha males, I mean, if you look at, certain types of animals that have social organizations involving alpha males, I mean, alpha males typically are leaders. I think there's a difference between a leader and a bully. But I realize also that the sort of alpha male movement right now is basically, I think, a category mistake, takes up the figure of the bully and presents it as that of the leader. I think that's sort of a delusion, but it's a delusion that's very widespread in popular culture today. A clash of personalities, of toxic personalities.
I found it interesting as well that this happened last week, their, epic breakup. And over the weekend, the U.S. president stepped up the attention around these protests in California. I'm not a political expert. That feels a little, though, like distraction, or how does that factor in? Like, I guess I'm wondering if would the escalation have happened in California without the public battle with Elon Musk?
My sense is that it would have. I think it's a convenient thing that that it also can serve as a way for Donald Trump to divert attention away from what just happened with his best bud Elon. But my sense is it would have happened anyways. Its function as a distracting mechanism obviously would not be at play. But the idea of creating and generating a situation that allows Trump to portray large factions of American society as being the so-called enemy withins, or bad, evil, marauding criminal people who need to be controlled and checked and perhaps imprisoned, or why not shoot them in the legs, as he suggested that during his first term, faced with Black Lives Matter demonstrations. I mean, I think that's part of the Trump book, of the Trump sort of project, to generate these important clashes. So, I mean, two examples of this: obviously, set in place immigration policies and modes of implementation of those policies, which will, without doubt, in certain particularly urban areas, generate massive pushback on behalf of civic society and activists and a bunch of people who were previously not that politicized, really. Create that, and then send in the troops, send in the armies. For the first time since 1965, National Guard is called upon to intervene without the governor of the state at hand making that request. I mean, create these sorts of dramatic situations. This is really a kind of yes, it's a setting up of a kind of a spectacle, actually, a spectacle in which Trump and his team can seem like the good guys, effectively. Those, not just the good guys, the saviors of a society which is fundamentally decadent. So I think that's part of the project, anyways. Another example is try to put in place all these laws that then get put down by courts, and then say, well, look, the judiciary is unelected. We have a popular mandate. The judiciary is also against us. So these things, I think, were foreseeably going to happen. The fact that Trump is now using this, you could say, to sort of turn our attention away from the meltdown of his relationship with Elon Musk is, I mean, it's a matter of convenience, but I would not. I mean, I'd have. Yeah. I mean, we're always speculating, right? But the idea that he would not have sent in the National Guard had it not been for this particular event last week, I think is implausible. I mean, he made it clear during his first mandate that this is something that he wanted to be able to do, and back then he didn't have a yes man responsible for defense, and now he does. So he can do it. But yeah, but this is something I think what we're seeing in LA right now is, this is, I think, bound to happen.
Yeah, it was just a matter of timing, maybe.
I think so, yeah. But I mean, that is doubling up as a sort of sort of smokescreen or as a distraction from other things. Sure, absolutely.
It feels a little like it fits in with the, kind of bully personality that you spoke about as well.
Absolutely. I mean, in the case of, there's a term for this in political theory. It's strongman politics. The strongman is kind of, reassuringly paternal figure, reassuringly depend on who you ask, of course, very concerning for others, but this, who's willing to use force. And it always comes hand in hand with this idea that there are factions of the society that represent a kind of illness, something to eradicate, a kind of internal cancer that you have to cordon off and control, and that you can use force to deal with. And yes, it's bullying, it's strongman politics, it's what was expected. It's what was promised. It's what they voted for as well.
But this is not something that's been seen in America before, I think maybe is why it feels different.
Yeah, I mean, there was very muscular use of force in the period of the Vietnam War protests. There was very muscular use of force against Black Panther activity, and so there have been moments of important rising and use of federal force in the U.S. before, but we've not seen the National Guard being sent in without the governor asking for it since 1965. So this kind of overriding of gubernatorial authority by the federal authority, that's something that we've not seen in a very long time.
I feel a little bit like, Musk almost served as like a megaphone for Donald Trump on some of his policy issues.
Yes. I mean, Musk, more than megaphone, I mean, he funded Trump's campaign with enormously important resources. I mean, a lot of the means, a lot of the financial means that were put at Trump's disposal for the election were provided by him, and of course he, repeated many of his a lot of the political messaging was repeated and reinforced and so on by Trump, but there were always disagreements, and there were disagreements even about immigration policy, particularly when it comes to highly skilled engineers coming from other parts of the world. But certainly this is a loss for Trump, and it challenges part of the narrative that he tried to build, and I mean, I think that he will be, at least on the short term, weakened by this, at least what he might perceive as a betrayal on behalf of Elon Musk. But Musk was always very clear on the importance of reining in deficits, and the reason part of the reason he doesn't like the one big beautiful bill, as they call it, is because the tax cuts are so important, and the service cuts are relatively fewer, that the deficit is going to grow incredibly. So I mean, there's no reason to be surprised that at Elon Musk's unhappiness with this particular legislative project.
Yeah, which I guess ultimately we could say, at least at this point, was the beginning of the end for the two of them.
Yes, you could say that, yes.
Yeah. Given this situation and where we are, and the fact that, maybe it could be seen as like a negative for the U.S. president, do you see these two getting back together?
Not for some time, but both seem to have a very short attention span, and both are capable of rapid changes in view and in allegiances. So I could imagine there being some sort of reconciliation after a few years. I mean, let's not forget that, for instance, J.D. Vance, now vice president, once described Trump as America's Hitler, uh, and was far from espousing the positions that he now espouses, just 5 or 6 years ago. So this is a lot of these players are, erratic people who change their minds about big things in a very short matter of time. So I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's certainly not impossible. We'll have to see what kind of shifts the Trump administration um implements, so to speak, in the next few months. We'll have to see how Elon Musk's politics and views evolve as well.
For anyone looking ahead to the U.S. midterms next year,
Yeah.
Donald Trump has done things that might have upset some Republicans, and
Yeah.
they're not going to have Elon Musk's wallet to throw at voters during those midterms, right?
No, and not only that, but Elon Musk has actually said, and I'm not sure this there's going to be any follow through with this, but he's spoken of forming a new party, saying that it'd be a genuinely centrist party, which is funny from a guy who told Germans not so far ago to vote for an openly neo-Nazi party. But anyways, he's spoken of forming a third party, and if he did this quickly enough, and ran candidates during the midterm, assuming that there are midterm elections, as opposed to some sort of emergency measure being called to cancel those or delay them indefinitely. But assuming that we're looking at a sort of regular, so to speak, election cycle, and there will be midterm elections, it's not impossible that Elon Musk has by then set up a party with its own candidates and could bankroll effectively a third party, which would be disastrous for Republicans and the MAGA movement. But my fear personally is that if the prospects of losing control of the legislative bodies in the U.S., if the prospects are high enough for Trump, I think we could reasonably be concerned that he would somehow call off the midterm by invoking some sort of emergency, either invoking in a fake way, invoking an emergency situation or emergency act or whatnot, or by somehow helping to contribute to the emergence of a real emergency, which in ordinary circumstances would effectively justify putting off elections, as happens, right? Ukraine hasn't held its ordinary presidential elections because they're at war. These things happen. When things are really bad, you don't run the elections. If Trump thinks he's going to fare badly enough, in part perhaps because of Elon Musk's opposition and perhaps the bankrolling of a third party or whatnot, then we could see this happening. It could mean that there won't be a midterm election. We'll see, right? But we're speculating. Who knows?
And I feel like at this point, anything is possible given what's happened so far.
At this point, I agree. I mean, it seems like so many things that seemed inconceivable just 4 or 5 months ago have turned out to be possible. It's very hard to get a read on where things are going in the U.S. right now. And I think as Canadians, it's very concerning that our next door neighbor, who's vastly more powerful than we are, and our first trading partner, is set on a course of extreme erraticism.
One day at a time.
Weather through.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll weather through one day at a time. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate you taking time to talk to us about this today. Your input is certainly very interesting and helpful. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Antoine Panaïoti is Associate Professor of Philosophy at Toronto Metropolitan University. In just a few days, attention will turn to Washington and a military parade to mark the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. That event just happens to fall on the same day as Donald Trump's 79th birthday. That wraps up this episode of The Big Story. You can find us on the Seeker app. Please rate, review, follow, and share. I'm Kris McCusker. Thanks for listening.